Okay, it's good to get back to work. It's a good thing about our profession that Sunday's always a tough day when you have a loss, and you get through it, and Monday you get to go back to work. So we're back to work and looking forward to getting the players over here this afternoon. Coaches have recovered, and at the end of the staff meeting this morning, we had smiles on their faces and ready to roll. So this is an interesting week for us. You know, Colorado, obviously you have to visit with Coach Hawkins and see how he feels. But other than the Missouri game, they've played pretty well in our opinion. They're very good defensively, and offensively they've changed up some things late. So it's really hard for me to comment on a lot of that. I don't study a lot of that, but they run to the ball well defensively. They tackle well, have physical guys up front. So we'll have to be very well prepared. We have to get the team's frame of mind back in order this afternoon and put the last game to rest and get ready for the next one.
Coach, what is the mentality of the team right now?
You know, I have not seen the team. I don't see them until later on this afternoon. But I'm going to guess that they're going to be fine. I think that any time when you're playing for a lot and you lose a game, it makes it very difficult. But they have to understand that we still have games, obviously Saturday's game and then remaining games to play. And they have to be mature enough and to come back and prepare this week to go to Colorado and play a good game.
What goals changed in it?
Well, obviously winning the conference is difficult at this point. I think the most important thing for our football team now is to win number 9. You know, that's a good question. You know, that got brought up this morning in the staff meeting because you start the season with certain goals, and then as long as you can keep your sights on those goals, they stay focused and in the right frame of mind. And if a goal changes, it's not what you wanted, but it's okay. And now what the new goal is for us is to win 9 games.
Is it an advantage for you, having been here for some of the best teams in school history? You know, for instance, it won 10 games, and that's something that's left is a potential 11-win season. Is that an advantage that you've been through some of that as a player?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's an advantage or disadvantage. I know that for our players, the opportunity to win the 9th game and continue on, as he mentioned, our goal, I think is more important than anything. And years ago, when we were having difficult times at these press conferences, when it was hard to find a win, one thing that I mentioned that I still believe in to this day personally is that when you play a team sport and you have a contest on Saturday, it's very important that you prepare and do your best you can, because that's what it's all about. Records aside, I mean, that's called competition, and I think our players need to understand that and prepare for the next game, and I think they do. We have some players that are very mature.
Mike, is there anything to the altitude thing, taking a team from here up to Boulder?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's some scientific reason for that question. When I played up there, I don't remember it being much of a factor. Now, I never ran around, so turn and toss the ball to 1 or 2 guys and throw a few passes to a big guy about wrapped it up for me. So I don't know that I'm a good example, but I don't remember it really affecting our team that much. But I'm sure there's some background to it's harder to get air and adapt to it, but it's not going to change before we get there. So I would say our guys need to prepare like normal and get ready to go play.
Being from Midwest City, when you were a player, every game here was really a home game for you. Your quarterback is going home and being a popular team leader. Does that play out as an advantage for you? The fact he's getting to go home, and his teammates are going to know how important it is to him.
Oh, I think that the team cares about each other and they want to do well for the entire team. I mean, I don't know that that's something that would cross their mind when they're preparing and or on the field playing. I just think there's so many other things going on with them in a daily activity that they just stay in a routine.
You mentioned the altitude. I mean, defensively, it may show up more than offensively. Does it help that Tim's been able to get some depth developed and get guys in there for a few snaps for a game like this?
Well, I think it always helps that you have depth. When you can roll guys in and stay fresh, whether the other team is moving the ball on you and you need to roll guys in, or the altitude for that matter, I don't think there's any question that in order to be a good football team, you obviously have to have success on defense. And then if you just watch college football today, I think most teams that are having success on defense are rolling players in and keeping them fresh.
What do you see in their defense?
Well, earlier I was mentioning that they're physical up front. The difference that they give you is their ends are 265, 270. A lot of the ends that we play in this league are 240-ish to 250-ish, so they're big on the ends. They're an attacking style defense. They like to come from different sides, and they bring a lot of pressure. They tackle well in space. They play some multiple fronts, some 4 down, some 3 down, do a lot of different things. So they're very versatile. I don't know a lot about their coordinator. I know that he came from Boise with him and has had a lot of success. And when I watch him on tape, it seems like to me that they do a nice job.
It was an exhilarating, confident-building type way to end the game for the defense against Iowa State.
Yeah, on the half-yard line.
Yeah, stopping it.
Stopped them there on the. They tried to run an option in the boundary.
It looked like on TV, Mike, that after Pettigrews fumble, everything went south for you guys.
Yeah.
Is that a disappointment that maybe your defense didn't buck up there a little bit and try to?
Well, they hadn't bucked up the whole game.
Yeah.
So I don't think the South started after that for the defense. I mean, if you ask our defensive guys, I don't know how many of them have been up here. They're going to probably tell you the South started from after the first fumble. Now, where I was disappointed was offensively, we had a couple chances there to go strike for strike with them when they were scoring, and we didn't do that. And so I was disappointed in us as a group because we didn't go match him. Now, we were moving the ball when he fumbled, but that's obviously doesn't do any good. And once they got ahead by 3 scores, it makes it more difficult on our offense.
When you look back on that game, are you more inclined now to view it as just a bad night for your defense, or are you willing to give Tech credit and just say, man, they are that good and they were at home?
I got asked that question this morning. I'm going to say that 75. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out here. I'm going to say 75% of it. They're probably pretty good. When I didn't see a lot of it up close, but they're pretty good, I think. And then secondly, once the ball got rolling and we couldn't stop it, then sometimes that happens in college football. I mean, it starts to snowball on you, and you can't slow them down, and it happens sometimes. I mean, I'd like to sit up here and say that we'll play here for as long as I'm the head coach here and not get in a game when we can't stop the bleeding, but sometimes that happens in college football. And as a football team, you have to see why it happened and correct it and continue to work at it and try to not let it happen again. But I'm going to say that they're a pretty good football team right now.
Did they do some things defensively that maybe you didn't expect?
No. It's the exact same.
Well, they got 80 plays, you got 63. Is that just flipped from what you expected you had to have to win or have a chance to win?
Not completely flipped, but was interesting in this game against them. And we've had some pretty interesting games the last 6 years, 8 years, even back when Les was here, is that they were able to score and control the clock in that style of play. That's not been what's happened when we've played. So they converted and kept the ball from us and scored. And usually it's been the opposite of that. So that was not a good thing.
Comment whatever you get from watching the whole game from someone else? Or?
Well, that's a good question. My first comment on that, and we're going to sit down as a staff and we're going to talk about it as a group, and an offense and a defense, and then everybody together to see if there is something that we're missing. But my first thought is I don't specialize in defense. I don't spend the time in there. I don't study it. I never have. And I'm not so sure that as a head coach before this year that I wasn't I'm trying to think of the good way to put this to where I don't give anybody a lot of credit. I may have been worse to the defense by clicking over and saying, well, do this, or do this, when I really didn't know. And so now I'm not involved at all, and they're the ones that put the time and effort into it. And so I think that it may be better, but we're going to sit down as a group and talk about it after the season and see where we're at.
What about, I mean, maybe abstract things like trying to put the whole pieces together? Like, I mean, and I don't think you've even faced a situation like this, but knowing when to whether the onside kick or whether to punt.
I'm in on all that. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm in on all that. What we did, Barry, is we broke down our special teams. Every phase, the four big phases, everybody has a person that they watch on every one of them, and that information comes over the headphones. And so I listen and I hear what's going on. If there's an issue, those situations are discussed. For example, the issue we had with Iowa State on kickoff, I was listening to all that, and the corrections were being made, and it didn't work, but the corrections were being made. And so I was in on all that. And then any fake punts or onside or any of those circumstances that are faced during the game, those issues have been discussed before the game, and that information gets to me before anything were to happen. And then obviously if we're receiving an onside, I mean, I'll be up there.
Do you have a pretty good feel, even though you're not watching the defense, you have a pretty good feel for how they're doing that?
Oh, yeah, I can hear. I mean, I could hear Saturday. I mean, and I could see the video board. Zach and I were watching the video board, so when we were discussing things, I could watch it. And I saw more of that game than I did any of them by just watching the video board.
Do you remember the 05 Colorado game as maybe being your most miserable day, maybe ever in football, because you got beat 38-0, and weren't you just sick as a dog that day?
I was very sick.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Very sick. Yeah, it was a pretty miserable day. Yeah, how do you remember things, like bring up things like that?
And I remember you being sick. I just remember 38-0.
You guys got too much free time on your hands. You need to be doing fantasy football or something.
I do. My team's 0-10.
Damn. We need to be writing articles on you. You're big time now. You're on. They said they saw you on ESPN News or something, and you did a nice job. The guys.
I picked the wrong score.
Well, it's a good score to start with, especially since you're our beat writer. I mean, but you did a nice job on that, they said.
But was that a pretty jarring day? Because you knew in September that year you had some issues, but when you get into Big 12.
We had some issues back then, yeah. Yeah, I was very, very sick, so it was a difficult day, and we couldn't stop the power. Barnett used to like to run power all the time, and we couldn't stop that, so that wasn't a lot of fun. In fact, the first play went 78 or 80 long ways.
In
untouched.
05 and 06, you limit Tech to, I think, about 6 touchdowns in the 2 games combined with a different guy coordinating defense. And then the last 2 years, giving up, 14 touchdowns or something. You think maybe you're trying to do too much, or you scaled back too much?
As a defensive philosophy?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any question. I don't know if Beck's come up here today, but when the season's over, they had to sit down as a group and look at what's happening and why it's happening and what the plan would be for next year. Because obviously we're going to play them every year, and I don't think there's any secret and reason to hide that. We do that offensively. I mean, and I know that they do it, and people stuff us for a couple years. Well, we need to sit down and spend 2 or 3 days and look and see what's happening and why is this happening. Now, physically, if they're just whipping us, then that's one thing. Okay, so how do we overcome that? Well, it's more difficult if you're just getting whipped physically. But scheme-wise, where are we at? What are we doing? What gives our players the best chance? I don't think there's any question that he would tell you, and I don't want to speak for him, that after the season they need to sit down for 3 or 4 days and study what's happening and try to correct the mistakes for next year.